Or Numbers 3, let's call this one security. Why? Because security was a lesser known role of the Levites in their service at the tabernacle and in the priesthood. Understanding that we mentioned them before, at the time Moses came down from Mount Sinai and saw the people worshiping a golden calf, he asked a simple question: who's on the Lord's side? The Levites stepped up, and at the expense of having to kill people that they knew who were guilty for worshiping the golden calf, that is how they were designated for God's service. And that carries over into this chapter where we see part of their duties being security. Understanding that, beginning around verse 10 of Numbers 3, it's going to read, "And you shall appoint Aaron and his sons, and they shall guard their priesthood. But if any outsider comes near, he shall be put to death. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Behold, I have taken the Levites from among the people of Israel instead of every firstborn who opens the womb among the people of Israel. The Levites shall be mine, for all the firstborn are mine." He's going to talk about that role of security more in verse 38, or verse 38 beginning. Those who were to camp before the tabernacle on the east, before the tent of meeting toward the sunrise, were Moses and Aaron and his sons, guarding the sanctuary itself to protect the people of Israel. And any outsider who came near was to be put to death. All those listed among the Levites, whom Moses and Aaron listed at the commandment of the Lord by clans, all the males from a month old and upward were 22,000. Understanding it's not going to stop there, because chapter 8 is going to talk about the retirement of the Levites, and in describing their duties, it's going to say, beginning in chapter 8, verse 23, "And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying," this applies to the Levites, "from 25 years old and upward, they shall come to do duty in the service of the tent of meeting. And from the age of 50, they shall withdraw from the duty of service and serve no more. They minister to their brothers in the tent of meeting by keeping guard, but they shall do no service. Thus you shall do to the Levites in assigning their duties." Understand, one of these descendants of the Levites, a man by the name of Phinehas, in chapter 25, is going to pick up a spear and once again intervene at a time when at least one individual, really a number of individuals, have looked at God's law and once again said, we're going to do whatever we want, and it's going to bring a plague on the people. And Phinehas is going to stop the plague by once again killing one of his Israeli brothers. These passages have sometimes been used to justify us as disciples or believers picking up weapons in certain situations on God's behalf. But here is the thing to notice. There was also a man by the name of Joab, a great general in David's reign. And Joab, even though he gave David godly advice at times when David was perplexed, was a man who was eventually found guilty of war crimes, not by any kind of tribunal, but simply by the fact that they knew that he had picked up his sword during a time of war, but in a time where it went beyond his duty as a soldier simply to settle old scores. And so ultimately Joab died for his war crimes. And the question is, when is it okay as a person of God to pick up the steel, the sword, or a weapon on God's behalf, and when is it not? Well, David might help us understand a little bit better. When, Psalm 19 is going to say, "Who can discern his errors? Declare me innocent from hidden faults. Keep back your servant also from presumptuous sins. Let them not have dominion over me. Then I shall be blameless and innocent of great transgression." Understand, this is David, a soldier, penning Psalm 19. And so he is helping us to understand the danger of two things at war within us as believers. One, the times when we genuinely want to serve God, but those other times when we have something else going on in our minds and our hearts that makes it impossible for us to clearly understand whether or not our own motives are proper. And understand how this works in David. He was loyal to his men until it came to the issue of Uriah and him being torn between trying to conceal his sin and being loyal to one of his soldiers. And so understand, if even a man after God's own heart can be torn, then where are we? And so ultimately this goes back to that question of discernment. See, David was a soldier who penned the longest chapter in the Bible, Psalm 119. Phinehas and the Levites were set apart not only for understanding, but intuitively doing God's will. And likewise, to the degree we are actually acting on God's behalf, we are going to say and do things that indicate we intuitively follow what he is asking us to do. But to the degree that things we say and do are honestly more informed by things that have nothing to do with God, the more we're putting ourselves in danger of presumptuous sins, whether or not we've got a weapon in our hands. His best to you as you go forward in him, though.